there's not a level playing field. I think that's clear. Next, we'll go to Representative Palmer. You're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. McConnell, do you have any idea how much land space would be required to go to 100% renewables if it's predominantly wind and solar?
Yeah, we've had some conversations here today. I don't have an exact number for you, but somewhere in the neighborhood of the entirety of the state of South Dakota has been identified. But I'd like to make a point on that question. We talk about installed capacity of electricity, and we talk about installed renewables and installed wind and solar, but that's not delivered electricity. That's electricity that's available some 20 to 25% of the time. And so when you start talking about installed capacity as the answer to our energy needs, it's not. And the storage we have in this country is less than 5%.
Now, let me ask you this. What is the single biggest threat to our electric grid? I'll leave that for anybody. Mr. Browning, you know what that is?
Well, it depends on where you are in the country, but if you're in Texas or you're in California right now, one of your concerns is you've got a lot of renewable power on your grid. And when you have an extreme weather event, you need to be able to store that renewable power to make it available for that,
well, actually,
that later time.
The North American Electric Reliability Commission put out a report, and they said the number one threat to our electric power grid reliability is changing the fuel mix. And that's what concerns me. We got a lot of people, that claim to know the science and that don't have any engineering background, but that seem to think that we can just turn this thing into a completely renewable power grid overnight, and that's simply not possible. I'm for renewables, but if you want to talk about clean energy with no emissions, why aren't we talking about next gen nuclear? I mean, does it make sense when the life expectancy, generation life expectancy for a next gen power facility is 100 years versus maximum maybe 25 years for solar, maybe 25 to 30 for wind? Does that make sense to you, Mr. McConnell?
It doesn't, and whether it's nuclear or whether it's decarbonized fuel secure energy, whether that's coal or gas, the whole idea is how can we deliver baseload electricity with zero carbon emissions? That's the question, not whether or not it's wind or solar or fossil,
And we're not going to stop it completely with advances in technology, but there's also a cost that a lot of my colleagues don't want to talk about. And Europe's experiencing this right now in terms of excess winter deaths. In China, a lot of my colleagues are big supporters of China. That's what this bill is really about. They're really supporting China and their renewable effort. But what they don't want to admit is what's going on with forced labor in China, the genocide, where a lot of these components are made. But also, they may not be aware of this, that in China's push to look greener, they literally are letting people freeze because they don't have access to power. And we're seeing this in Europe with excess winter deaths in the UK and Europe. That's what concerns me, having worked for a couple of international engineering companies, including one that was in the environmental systems area. There's a cost in terms of lives lost, in terms of health consequences for people. Should my Democrat colleagues just consider this collateral damage? Mr. McConnell?
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't go that route at all. In fact, we have the capabilities for it not to be. And I think that's the whole key. We can't just make unilateral decisions that we want to be something over the next 5 to 10 years. We have to make an energy transition occur. We have to have suitable baseload energy fuel secure supplies of electricity. And we need to build in the renewable programs that we're talking about. But this idea that we're just going to slam it all over to one end right away at the expense of reliability and cost is really a fool's errand. And that's not what people are looking for. And it's clear we had that issue in Texas, and we suffered through it in a big way.
Well, I'll yield back. My time's expired. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Well, thank you very much. And frankly, Mr. Palmer, I was surprised that you went down that road, because it's just impossible to ignore the climate fueled deaths in our own country over the past year, due to the heat wave out west, due to a bizarre cold snap in Texas.
Madam
And
Chairman, the reports, the science on this is there's 17 to 20 times more people die from coal related issues.
I don't
than
think you
from
want to
heat.
go down that road, Mr. Palmer. So let's move on. I'll recognize Mr. McEachin for 5 minutes.